Well, hello everyone. Again, this is me after I took care of the uploading and clicky-clacky YouTube stuff of the previous rules video. This is now the video on the resolutions packet for the Winter 2026 meeting of the Idaho Republican Party's State Central Committee. So, before I get too far into this, I am going to read something, and you need to listen because pretending you didn't hear me say this will have certain conversational consequences later on if you try to make any kind of complaints. All opinions and views expressed in this video are my own and not of my employer, any other employees of my employer, or anyone duly authorized to speak or act on behalf of my employer. Now, there's a certain grammar error that I'm going to fix and post later. But, yeah, I'm going to now do the resolutions packet. It's apparently 53 pages long. I was told that it was closer to something like 24 resolutions. And that reminds me, um, people are going to notice that a certain resolution is missing from this packet. Well, it's not exactly missing. It is not included because it will not be considered. And the reason why that is a lot more boring than anyone is actually going to realize. I'm talking about my resolution that I submitted through Ada County. People were looking forward to it. I had an SCC member lined up and everything, and yet stuff happened. Yeah, I lined up Cheryl Hurd for that one, in fact, but oh well. But anyway, so that one isn't going to be there. It does not mean anything. Nothing foul is afoot by its absence. And that is the whole story. And I'm sticking to it. So, I will just transition over to the packet and get started here. So, the 2026 Resolutions Committee, it's now center justified as opposed to the other one, has Scott Herndon, Bjorn Handing, Cornell Razor, all good people. Oh, Region 4 even got Alexis Scott in here. Greg Furch is, from Region 5. That's cool. Some dishonest people at the bottom, but whatever. Let's see. Then there's what? This had some sort of linking template to it. That's actually a lot less than useful than you think. But anyway, okay. Table of contents. Oh, now I can't highlight. Oh, that boo. Being unable to highlight text in here is a problem, but okay. Should make a lot less complicated of a PDF. Table of contents, Resolution 2026-01, to provide support staff for Resolution to provide support staff for legislators. So you're trying to put party support behind adding more staff in the basement or what have you of the state house. No, because it's going to cost money for one, and two, it's going to be putting a lot more people in an already crowded place. I've been in there I've been in those rooms a few times, and I want to see what the heck that even is, because that the title makes it sound like something very un-Republican. Okay, 2026-02, resolution in opposition to men and women's locker rooms and calling for criminal prohibitions. Okay, that sounds Republican. 2026-03, honoring and remembering Charlie Kirk. Okay. 2026-04, resolution called for combining the May and to the November. Oh, this is the election consolidation thing I heard about going through. Okay, cool. 2026-05, resolution to prohibit Sharia in Idaho courts and governing proceedings. Okay. Look forward to reading through that. 2026-06, resolution condemning multi-subject legislation by the Idaho. Oh, somebody's. I like this. It sounds like somebody's about to start a fight, but okay, cool. Let's go for it. Fight for something at least. Resolution to amend the Constitution regarding education and public school attendance. Oh, that's either really good or really bad. Well, we'll see what it's on about. Resolution for Idaho Education Accountability Act. Well, we'll see what they're talking about here in a moment. Resolution 2026-09, resolution to ban foreign government purchases of Idaho homes. Ooh, yeah, this is the whole China land problem. Well, look forward to seeing what's going on there. Resolution 2026-10, resolution to adopt and enforce immigration laws that hold employee. Oh. Somebody's looking to start a fight with the Mickelsons. I'm going to grab the popcorn for that one. 2026-11, resolution for improved rural representation in library districts. Well, title sounds good. Let's see what's going on there. 2026-12, resolution for campus self-defense. Oh, ringing this up again. Okay, cool. Resolution opposing statutory or regulatory indemnification for private entities, contractors. Is this the vaccine thing, or is this the... Well, let's just get there when we get there. Resolution requesting legislation for protection and management of public lands within the state of Idaho. Okay. That could be referring to a few different issues. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Resolution regarding taxpayer support for teachers unions. Ooh, we're starting that fight again. Well, let's go. 2026-16, resolution for equitable local service funding within tribal reservation boundaries. I'm not sure what they're getting at, but let's find out. Resolution urging a constitutional amendment to replace all state taxes with a sales tax and... Oh, this is the Ben Chaffetz thing. Taxation isn't theft. It's extortion. I'll just say that. Okay. Resolution 2026-18. Resolution to cut $1.1 billion in non-constitutional spending from the Idaho state budget. I want to know what they're talking about. I'm looking forward to reading that. Next one, resolution to return the United States of America to a constitutional money system of commodity-backed money. Oh, we're doing the whole gold backs thing again. Cool. Cool. A resolution regarding ending weaponization of labels and government. Wonder what that is. Resolution to prohibit pornography in the state of Idaho. If I'm reading this correctly, and I very well may not, this might be a bit unconstitutional what they're suggesting, but let's see what's actually in that resolution before judging it. Title, Keep Idaho's Water. Okay. I don't know what's going on there. We'll find out. 2026-23, resolution calling for a posthumous pardon for Randy Weaver and the... Oh, absolutely. That man was screwed over by the feds and the press. 2026, every child a swimmer. What the heck is... Every child a swimmer? No. Well... Let's see what they're talking about first, but this better not be another glamping resolution. Resolution 2026-25, resolution enduring undivided loyalty requiring extended U.S. citizenship, residency, also allegiance and background checks for elected or appointed offices in Idaho. Okay, well, we read through the table of contents. Now, let's see. 2026-01. 6-01. We're finally getting to it at 10:35 into the video. 10 minutes, 35 seconds into the video. This is submitted by Phil Hart. Oh, okay, cool. Out of Shoshone County. Oh, hey, I hope everybody up in Shoshone County is doing okay. There's that thing that happened in Wallace that hit the national wire, and people tried saying it was some kind of Nazi that shot up the courthouse. It turns out it was the husband of some crazed leftist, and we still don't know the actual reason behind any of what happened. So, hey, you know what? You guys up in Shoshone, we've been thinking about you. Hope you heal. But anyway, so the resolution, at least the resolution at hand here, Phil Hart, Shoshone County. Whereas Federalist Paper 51, ooh, we're going there. Federalist Paper 51 states, in Republican government, the legislative authority necessarily predominates. Okay. Whereas the Declaration of Independence states that government gets its just powers from the consent of the governed. Ooh, where are we going? This is supposed to be about support staff. Okay. Whereas in the Constitution, legislative branch makes the laws, executive branch enforces the laws. Well, that's a bit reductive, but okay. And judicial branch resolves controversies regarding the law, making the branch the right the rights to dominate the three branches. Well, it can be thought of that way. Where are you going with this, Phil? Whereas Idaho is one of the only 3 states in the nation that does not provide personal or year-round staff support to its legislators. Oh gosh, there's a reason for that, and I kind of don't like where you're going. Whereas Idaho is only one. Oh, okay, I read that part. The budget of Idaho's legislature is only 1/700th of the total budget of all of Idaho's government, causing Idaho's legislative branch to be the weakest of the 3. Okay, this is not the argument you think you're making here. You're saying that because you have only a sliver of the pie, you should the more treasury funds should be spent on you. That's effectively what you're saying here. Is that because there's only 1/700th of the treasury spent on you, more should be spent. That's a terrible argument. Whereas legislators are expected to review complex legislation. Why is it complex? Respond to constituent needs. Well, yeah. Well, okay. See, wording it like expected to. See, that's a thing that you're supposed to know about before you run. Otherwise, you're just trying to blindly get elected to some seat of power without knowing what the actual job is. I hope that's not what happened with you, Phil. Respond to constituent needs, analyze state budgets. Well, yeah, you are supposed to read. And develop sound policy. Well, there is a platform for that. And often while maintaining other employment as their legislators is. Okay. So now you're getting complained about what do they call it? The per diem? Is that what you're doing here? Being a legislator is not supposed to be a money-making venture. At all. And the suggestion of otherwise makes me extremely concerned. Whereas the lack of dedicated staff results in increased reliance on lobbyists. Oh, the lobbyists made me do it? This old thing again? Okay, I'm starting to really not like this. Special interest groups and partisan organizations. One of said partisan organization is literally the people you're submitting this resolution to. You're complaining about the party? Hell no, hard no just for that. Organizations for information and research, and whereas the vast majority of legislation is written by executive branch agencies or lobbyists, as idle legislators lack the resources to keep. Okay, if this is a problem, which I'll grant might actually be, start saying no. Grow a spine. Lack resources to keep up with their responsibilities. There's a way to fix that. And if this is really a problem for you, resign and let somebody else run. Whereas access to qualified dedicated staff, okay. Paid for does not necessarily mean that. Just straight up, I'm going to put it like that. What you're saying right there is not necessarily the most complete, honest take of the situation. Paid staff does not mean qualified and dedicated. In fact, it often means the opposite, especially in the corporate world. Qualified would improve legislative. I'm not convinced of that at all. In fact, it might have the opposite. Just look at New York. Transparency and responsiveness and the overall quality of governance. Quality of government. So, okay. We should throw money at something to increase the quality of government. Hell no. In the state of Idaho, would empower the legislature to be more of an equal branch of government. Okay. Again, if you're concerned about your stature in as far as the balance of power between the three branches, start saying no. Whereas providing minimal staff support would not constitute government but rather equip legislators. I completely disagree. Okay, therefore, that the Idaho State supports the. Okay, so we're starting off with a hard no. Okay, so my full response to this is, well, actually, no. I'm going to put a little more. If okay, so my full response to 2026-01 is hard no, and some of the supporting arguments for this are dangerously un-American. If stature and balance between the branches of government is really the concern here, start saying no to the other branches and grow a spine while you're at it. This is un-American, un-Idahoan, and un-Republican. All right, now I'm done. 2026-02. Okay. 2026-02 at 2005 in the video. Okay, a resolution in opposition to women's locker rooms and calling men in women's locker rooms and calling for... Okay, Scott Herndon, Bonner County Chair, Bonner County Republican Central Committee, November 18. Daniel Vanneman. Oh, hey, Dan Vanneman. Okay, cool. Whereas on October 15, 2025, a lifeguard Jennifer Hook entered the women's locker room at the Sandpoint and discovered a biological male partially dressed in women's clothing using the female changing facility. Whereas Sandpoint Lighthouse confirmed that the events as reporting did in fact occur, and whereas Sandpoint Lighthouse YMCA confirmed in writing that it is their official policy to allow men who identify as women to invade the privacy of women's multi-occupancy locker rooms and bathrooms, and whereas the concept of gender identity is a fraud being perpetrated on the members of the YMCA by the YMCA's management, and whereas there are only two biological sexes, male and female, once made by God, human beings cannot alter their scientific biology, which includes their parts and chromosomes that delineate between the two sexes, and so, okay, so far this is, straight up. Okay, so, whereas true women feel violated and traumatized by male predators that would invade their privacy, safety, and security in women-owned facilities. I've heard that a lot. Sandpoint Lighthouse YMCA has not taken responsibility for this invasion of the dignity of our community's women, and instead have blamed the city of Sandpoint's non-discrimination ordinance. Oh, so they don't have a spine, and they're just citing some law. Okay. Whereas the ordinance of the city does not actually demand that men be allowed into women's locker rooms and bathrooms, but could certainly be used to manipulate good people to believe that. Oh, they're making a very certain accusation here. Okay, cool. Whereas I was inducing exposure, Austrian trespassing by peeping Tom, misdemeanor, and felony are but not directly on point to address the transgender fraud, and it is able to allow the tyranny of a minority, for example, one man, to invade the reasonable privacy and security of girls and women. Okay, not wrong. Therefore, be it resolved, the Idaho Republican State Central Committee condemns this policy, cowardice, and inaction of the Sandpoint Lighthouse management as related to our repugnance and blah, 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 blah. This supports the city of recent changes to city code to clarify that it does not prevent overfit of authentic women, and etc. Be it further resolved, the Idaho State Republican Central Committee calls upon the Idaho legislature to immediately pass a criminal statute that prohibits people from knowingly and willfully using multi-occupancy changing facilities, bathrooms, and sleeping quarters of the biological sex that is not consistent with their own sex as defined in that part of Idaho Code. And be it finally resolved that we direct the state chair to request the IDGOP liaisons to work with fellow legislators. Okay. Agree. Male and female created he them. And that's all I have to say about this. This is an extremely Republican resolution. Okay, let's see. Do some cleanup text on over there. And, okay, Resolution 2026-03, 2026-03, and we are 2345 in the video. Resolution honoring and remembering Charlie Kirk, Chris Charical, Canyon County, whereas Charlie Kirk was of Christian faith, conservative principles, as founder of the... I was even in the same room as Charlie Kirk on one of those occasions. Called out Candace when it right in front of her when it was happening too, because Candace Owens is a fraud and a known doxer. Anyway, through his speech, okay, a lot of this is about Charlie Kirk and all that. The permanent records, the showing that recognition. Okay, cool. Hard agree. '26-04. So 2026-04 Resolution calling for the combining the May election in odd number years into the November elections in odd number years. Okay. Oh yes, this is the Michael Hahn thing. Okay, cool. Submitted by Michael Hahn, Ada County. Oh yeah, that's right. We briefly debated about this, I think. When May 1st, 2025, election during the 13th. Okay. And largest in Idaho. And May 21st, 2025, election was run in only 37 of the 44 counties of Idaho. It's not untrue. The cost of Idaho Council was a process. Oh, okay, that's those are some big numbers. Okay. Whereas the cost of this election clearly outweighs the benefits from a perspective of low participation and election fatigue. This is a lot bigger a point than people actually realize, because when election fatigue is in the mix of the situation, the will of the people is inherently not heard. And that is most certainly a problem. It is one of the worst problems that we can have in a republic such as ours. So, yes, that is a very good point. Whereas the November election in odd years garners more voter participation to focus on the fire districts of of all of these different things, and it's still a little bit of a challenge to get people to show up for these things, but maybe these two problems could fix each other, as it were, by consolidating. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls for the Idaho State Legislature to amend the election laws to eliminate May election in odd number years and fold those elections into November election of odd number years. Okay. That's what it's actually asking for there, which is not bad. Be it further resolved that upon passage of this resolution, the chairman shall submit a copy of this resolution to the state legislature. Okay, cool. Hard agree. Oh, crap. When did I start this part? I'll just say it was roughly at 25 minutes. Hard agree. And the issues described therein are getting worse. Okay. So, moving on to 2026-05. 605. Let's see, where are we at? 2749 in the video. Okay. Oh, Matt Edwards is on this. Okay. Resolution to prohibit Sharia in courts and government and proceeding. Jeff Tyler. Oh, okay, cool. Jeff Tyler's on this one. The Kootenai County people. Okay, I'm liking this a lot. Okay, already. Whereas the United States of America is founded upon the principles of a constitutional republic, which stands on the long-standing and greatest form of government in world history, embodying American exceptionalism through its commitment to individual liberty, rule of law, and a representative republic chosen through a democratic process. Well, I would choose a different word than democratic there, but whatever. Okay, and this constitutional framework ensures that all laws and judicial decisions are rooted in American jurisprudence, free from foreign or incompatible legal systems that could undermine our sovereignty and fundamental rights. And whereas the Islamic law, known as Sharia, derived from Islamic religious texts, means the set of rules, precepts, instructions, or edicts which are said to emanate directly or indirectly from the God of Allah or the Prophet Muhammad, which include directly or indirectly include the encouragement of any person to support abrogation, destruction, or violation of the United States or Idaho constitutions, or the destruction of national existence of the United States or the sovereignty of the state, and which includes, among other methods to achieve these ends, the likely use of imminent violence. This is not wrong. That's literally saying how it is. Taqiyya, I think, is the word. Sharia represents the comprehensive legal and societal code that in many applications conflicts with American values, including equality under the law, freedom of speech, protections against the cruel and unusual. Yeah, and you're kind of underselling it there, actually. But, okay. Whereas several states have recognized the potential incompatibility of Sharia with American jurisprudence and have enacted legislation to prohibit its use in court or government proceedings, including Alabama, Arizona, Kansas, Louisiana, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Tennessee. And whereas in recent years have seen, I should say that again. Whereas recent years have seen a rise in the prominence of Islamic political figures in. My phone is telling me to go to bed. Um, Political figures in the United States, including high-profile elections, which raised concerns about the promotion of ideologies that may prioritize Sharia over contradictory constitutional principles. And, well, he's not wrong there. Whereas in the 2025 New York City mayor's race, Muslim candidate Zoran Mamdani has been elected mayor, prompting discussions about the integration of Islamic perspectives into American governance, sparking backlash over political potential ideological influences. Maybe I do need to go to bed. And whereas the mayor of Mountain Home has remarked that the Qatari presence at the Mountain Home Air Force Base would be a contribution to community diversity, potentially overlooking risks associated with ideologies that include adherence to Sharia principles and. Okay, that's kind of not good. I didn't know that the Mountain Home mayor said that, but okay. Whereas instances across the United States have demonstrated perceived threats from Sharia, such as attempts to apply it in family court disputes, arbitration agreements, and community practices that conflict with state laws on issues like polygamy, inheritance, women's rights, leading to legislative responses in states like Texas and Arkansas. I heard about the Texas one. Whereas proponents of anti-Sharia measures include Senator Tom Turner of Alabama, warned that Islamic extremism, including the promotion of Sharia, poses a significant threat to American security and values, emphasizing the need to eradicate such influences. And whereas additional examples of Sharia-related concerns, including reports of Sharia patrols in certain U.S. communities enforcing religious codes informally and legal challenges where foreign Sharia rulings were cited in U.S. courts before being rejected, underscoring the need for proactive safeguard. You're not wrong here, and it looks like you're kind of overselling it now. Allowing any form of Sharia adherence in Idaho state or local institution would represent destructive ideology incompatible with our constitutional republic, threatening the exceptionalism that has made America a beacon of freedom. Okay, so that's all the supporting text. Let's see what we're actually doing now. Therefore, be it resolved by the Idaho Republican State Central Committee that we call upon the Idaho State Legislature to introduce and pass legislation explicitly banning the implementation, recognition, or adherence to Sharia in any state or local court, government agency, or public institution within Idaho, and be it further resolved that this legislation should prohibit the use of Sharia principles in any legal proceedings, arbitration, or administrative decisions, ensuring that all governance remains firmly grounded in American constitutional law. Okay, well, that's a whole lot of I agree, so hard agree. Sharia is a disease. And I'm not wrong there either. 2020, okay, so 2026-06, 2026-06, and we are 3358 in the video. All right, so resolution condemning multi-subject legislation by the Idaho legislature by David Wenk, Boundary County Chair. Okay, well, let's see what this actually is. I think I might know, but let's see. Whereas Article 3, Section 16 of the Idaho Constitution provides that every act shall embrace but one subject and matters. Oh, okay, yeah, that's the single subject part of the Constitution. Okay. And whereas, I'll hold transparency. Whereas at the federal level, for us full truth, and yeah. Okay, yeah. Right. The single subject rules a long-standing safeguard where both public and deliberate process of Okay, this is a whole lot of good. Even when bills pursue goals supported by many Idahoans, including the promotion of election integrity and family values, those goals are undermined when legislation is packaged in a way that violates the spirit, if not the letter, of Idaho's constitutional. Oh, we're talking about the extraordinary session thing, aren't we? Yeah, I think we are. Whereas this legislative practice diminishes transparency, limits the ability of legislators and the public to weigh individual policy provisions on their own merits, and erodes trust in the legislative process. You're not wrong. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee affirms its support for single subject rule as in the Idaho Constitution, calls upon it to adhere to this strictly to its intent, and therefore, be it further resolved that the committee condemns the practice of combining multiple unrelated or loosely related provisions in a single piece of legislation and urges the Idaho legislature to cease this practice immediately. Okay, and the copies of this resolution shall be trimmed. Blah 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 blah. Okay, cool. Hard agree. All right, so far it's mostly good. Okay, let's see. 2026-07, 2026-07, and where are we in the video? 3610. All right, what do we got? Looking at the view meter. Okay, yep, still working. Resolution to amend the Idaho Constitution regards to education and public school attendance, submitted by Hannah Herndon. Okay, Bonner County, and okay, cool. Whereas the Idaho Constitution in Section 9, Article 10, grants the legislature authority to require by law that every child shall attend the public schools of the state throughout the period between the ages of 6 and 18 years. Well, you're not wrong, but where are we going? Unless educated by other means, and whereas such a law forcing children to attend state public schools is repugnant to the inalienable right of liberty, which our nation was founded. You're not wrong. It is a bit of a problem in a very specific place, but circumstance rather. Whereas such a requirement would violate the free exercise clause of the First Amendment of the United States and the right of parents and guardians to educate their children as they choose. Not wrong. And whereas the Idaho Republican Party platform upholds the principles of freedom, limited government, and the right of parents and guardians to educate their children as they choose. It's a bit of a repeat, but okay, cool. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee urges the legislature to adopt the following joint resolution in the House and Senate to secure the appearance of the following amendment to. Oh, we're including direct code in here. Okay, cool. Education by other means. The right of the people to educate their children without government regulation outside the public schools and shall not be. Okay, I like this. Okay. Be it finally resolved that the state chair to request the Idaho legislative liaisons to work with their fellow legislators to ensure passage of the. Okay. Agree. Moving on. Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff in this. Okay, cool. 2026-08, 2026-08. Where are we at in the video? 3831. And resolution for Idaho Education Accountability. Okay, well, Martin Shaw, late county chair. Okay. Presented by Becky Loomis, etc., etc. Whereas the Idaho Constitution guarantees access to a uniform and thorough system of public, free, common schools with the purpose of preparing students for success as productive and informed citizens. Well, that's the very sanitized version of it, but okay. Whereas between 2019 and 2022, both 4th and 8th grade reading math scores have declined across the state of Idaho. Not wrong. I've heard of this. While per student spending has continued to rise. Didn't know that. Demonstrating that increased funding alone has not resulted in measurable academic improvement. Okay. Not wrong. Whereas the 2024 Idaho standards, the ISAT, reported that only 42% of Idaho students achieved proficiency higher in mathematics in 54% in... Well, somebody's trying to text me right now, and I'm ignoring them. In English language arts, meaning a majority of students are performing below statewide benchmarks. Okay, I definitely know that while this problem is definitely worse, it has definitely been a problem for some time, because while I was the top 97 percentile across most of my years in the public school system in vocabulary and language. A lot of my fellow students at such times definitely weren't. And by the time I was in high school, it was actually pretty clear that the system was failing a lot of people, a lot of students. So, yeah, sad to say it. I'm sad to hear that it's not getting any better. Whereas statewide data shows that 91% of students are in districts whose math performance remained below 2019 levels. Okay, I didn't know that was so high. And 96% in students in districts where reading performance remains below 20. Okay, that's bad. And whereas, okay, you need to include... this is a separate whereas clause. You need to fix this. Whereas studies have shown that while adequate funding is necessary to maintain a simple increasing budget does not automatically change. Yeah. Whereas over the past 9 years, Idaho school administrative staffing levels have risen significantly. I didn't know that, but it's not surprising. Assistant superintendents approximately by 60%, assistant principals by over 50, counselors by 30, school nurses by 25, while teacher and student populations have increased only 8%, indicating a disproportionate growth, etc. While taxpayers deserve transparency regarding how education funds are used and how local schools and districts perform relative. Yeah, okay, this is a whole lot of I agree, or just simply the facts on the matter. Whereas parental involvement is a critical factor in student achievement. Well, yeah. Read the last read the last resolution. Parents have a right to be fully informed and engaged. And yes, in fact, that's literally what the whole last resolution was about. Whereas it is the duty of the State Board of Education Superintendent of Public Instruction and local school districts to ensure that resources are allocated efficiently and directly toward improving student outcomes. I just had an idea. I think all of the partisan public officers, so that I think that includes like Debbie Critchfield and whatnot, all the partisan ones, to be called to the carpet and answer for this. Because if things are not improving, our public officials need to be held accountable, and the IDGOP is kind of in a unique position where we can call somebody who is elected under a Republican ticket. We can call them to account. I might get back to you on that. Whereas is the... Okay, I just read that. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee urges the Idaho House of Representatives and Senate to pass the education legislation. Shall establish annual and district report custom they identified several... Okay. Okay, there's a lot of line break stuff that didn't happen. The formatting is deficient in this document here, especially this resolution here. But the legislature may enact additional reforms and... Agree. Agree, and we need to call people to account. Okay, so my whole response to that is agree, and we need to call people to account. 2026 dash... let's see, what's in the next one's 09, right? 2026 09. Where are we in the video? 4427. All right. Resolution to ban foreign government purchases of Idaho homes, businesses, and non-agricultural land. Okay. Submitted by Bill Hobbs, Nez Perce County, Nez Perce, Heather Blount. Well, whereas the United States of America was founded on ideals of independence, self-determination, and the right of citizens to govern their own economic and political future. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big thing. Whereas foreign ownership of homes, businesses, farmland, forest, mineral rights, and water rights within Idaho undermines these principles by placing essential resources under control of interests outside of the authority of the American people. Okay, yeah, you're not wrong there. Foreign ownership of residential property driving up housing costs, reduce availability, right of families, and places community stability at risk. You're not wrong. Um, Foreign ownership of business shifts profits, decision making, and economic benefits overseas rather than strengthening Idaho's local economy and workforce. Not wrong. Whereas such practices are not in alignment with American First principles. Not wrong. Which hold on. Okay. This is a whole lot of stuff I just agree with. Idaho's already taken important steps by restricting foreign governments and etc. Right there. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee that by the that all purchases, lands, acquisitions, and controlling interests in private homes, business, and non-agricultural land, state land, or federal land in Idaho by foreign governments for state-controlled enterprises or other agents, including those from countries designated as foreign adversaries, must be stopped, and therefore be it further resolved that the Idaho State Legislature is urged to enact legislation prohibiting such purchases, requiring the divestiture of existing holdings within 180 days, and establishing enforcement mechanisms, including penalties and whistleblower incentives to ensure compliance. And be it further resolved that we direct the state chairman to request the Idaho GOP legislative liaisons to work with their fellow legislators to ensure passage of such that and that copies are distributed yada yada. Okay, I agree. I'll just say agreed, but easier said than done. Hopefully, this gets done. And I'm just going to say, yeah, I agree. It's something that absolutely needs to happen. Okay, resolution 2026-10. All right, where are we in the video? 4740. All right. Submitted by Nick Woods, Region 3, Nez Perce, represented by Dan Crawford. There's a significant number of illegal immigrants that reside and work in the state of Idaho, estimated from, okay, that's, those numbers are probably correct. Whereas the number of illegal immigrants in Idaho comprises to 2.5 to 3 of the state's population, or 1 in every 30 to 40 residents. That sounds like a small number, but it's actually a very, very big and damning number. Whereas recent studies have shown the cost of Idaho taxpayers for every illegal immigrant residing in the state is over almost $5K, costing Idaho citizens more than $400 million per year. Not wrong. Whereas Idaho citizens pay most of the $11K per student cost to provide free K-12 education to the children of the illegal immigrants, draining school district resources. Not wrong there. Sorry. I might split this video up. I might power through. Whereas an estimated 59% of illegal immigrant households use one or more major welfare programs, including, compared to just 39% of those headed by U.S. citizens. Okay. Whereas Immigration Reform Act provides for regulations and criminals for verification. Okay. Whereas the state of Iowa has not adopted these laws as state laws, thereby inhibiting local enforcement and creating financial burden to Idaho taxpayers, negatively impacting resources. And okay. Therefore, that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee support the adoption of the laws outlined in Part A, 20% of the Immigration Reform Act of 1986, as Idaho state law, and the enforcement of civil and criminal penalties for employers that continue Okay, and therefore this okay, cool. Agree. Agree. This should happen. 2026 11. Okay, and let's see. Where are we in the video? Okay, this is 2026 11. We're 5018 in the video. And what is this? Resolution for improved rural representation in the library districts. Okay, Martin Shaw, Layton County, Colton Bennett. Okay. Whereas, rural residents comport more than 40% of the motion, and yet are not represented by even a single rural resident of their choice on the library board. Okay. Whereas Moscow liberals, okay, we're coming out swinging, all right. Moscow liberals constitute or have selected all of the 5-member board, which has repeatedly enacted policies contrary to the will of rural Latah County voters, who have, for their part, repeatedly voted against incumbent board members. And so we're getting a representation issue here, a good old representation issue here. People used to be tarred and feathered over this kind of thing. Whereas should the Latah County Library have trustee zones, at least 2 of the 5 seats would be occupied by a more conservative rural resident. And whereas Idaho Code vests the library board as the sole power capable of initiating the process of creating trustee zones, and the Latah County Library Board will almost certainly never take such an action that would unseat some of their members and or cede representation to rural voters. Yeah, liberals love their power. Whereas the geographic representation is an American principle found in almost every elected office in Idaho, from legislatures and school boards to county commissioners and central committees. Also not wrong. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls upon the legislature to amend Idaho Code and adopt an alternative process for creating library trustee zones, whereby the people of Idaho library districts may seek creation of trustee zones outside the jurisdiction library board, i.e. a petition that could be submitted to county commissioners. And be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls upon the Latah County Library District and other libraries which have suppressed rural influence on their boards, all while guzzling. It's not wrong. Rural tax laws to create trustees zones prior to the next election, and be it finally resolved that the copies of this resolution shall be transmitted to the Latah Committee by the board. Yeah, I didn't know that this was quite a thing, but yeah, I agree. Okay, 2026 12, and which one is that? Where are we in the video? We are at 5308. Okay, campus self-defense protection. Oh, they're about to complain about the vandals. Okay. Martin Shaw, Latah County Chair, Latah GOP, Becky Loomis, and oh no, they're complaining about BSU too. Well, BSU deserves it. I'll just say that. Boise State University prohibit all weapons on campus, including non-lethal defense. This policy prevents students with the protection they need to defend. Hold up. A resident of Latah County should not be talking so loudly. And let me explain. Not only does the University of Idaho have comparable policies, especially when it comes to people who live on campus, but also the University of Idaho and I guess more broadly Latah County had a bit of a very big news story very recently. And if certain people were allowed to rightly defend themselves, it would not have been a story at all. So, is this just a dig at BSU, or are you trying to actually get at real policy here? Because if you're trying to get at real policy here and do some good here, then you should also call out the other major universities in the state, including the one very much in Latah County, that is the University of Drunken Idaho. So miss me with this. If you're going to include this, also include the much more infamous deficiency in an Idaho university, specifically the University of Idaho. See, and the rest of this I have no argument with at all. But you really need to be calling out people more equitably. Support statement supports legislation. Okay, I don't agree with any of this. Okay, in fact, I don't. Okay, I don't disagree. Rather, I don't disagree with any of this. I'm typing this out so that I'm being made very clear here. Okay. So this is my full response to Resolution 2026-12 at 5308 in the video. I don't disagree with any of this. However, there is a much more infamous incident that just simply would not have happened if the University of Idaho didn't have commiserate policies. If you're going to call out Boise State for this, which they rightly should be, then you should also call out the university right there in Latah County as well. And you know I'm not wrong. Yeah, they don't call me the orange jacket guy for nothing. Anyway, 2026-13, and we are 5810 in the video. Resolution opposing statutory regulatory indemnification of private entities, contractors, and researchers of operation in Idaho. Okay, what are they getting at? Martin Shaw, Latah County. Whereas the Idaho Republican Party stands for limited government, personal accountability, and the protection of life, liberty, and... Okay, that's straight from the platform. Whereas certain private businesses and industries, including but not limited to the pharmaceutical companies... Oh, this is the coof shot thing. This is the COVID shot thing. Okay. Whereas already prohibited indemnification... Whereas the indemnification undermines the free market by... You're not wrong there with this whereas clause. You're definitely not wrong there. Shielding private actors from liability erodes public trust, yada yada. It strikes at the roots of our republic and its constitution. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee urges the Idaho State Legislature to enact legislation prohibiting statutory regulatory indemnification of private entities, contractors, or researchers for harm caused to Idahoans through commercial, research, or service activities, and be it further resolved that such legislation apply regardless of the entity's corporate structure, funding source, or contractual relationship with government agencies, and Be it finally resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee reaffirms its commitment to equal standing of all citizens. And okay, agree. 2026 14. And where are we at in the video? We are 1 hour and 5 seconds. So we're almost right on the dot there. All right. Resolution 2026-14, resolution requesting the protection and management of public lands within the state of Idaho. Oh, Eric Parker. Okay, cool. Blaine and the Blaine County people. Okay, cool. Whereas the state of Idaho retains lawful jurisdictional control over all lands within its board. Oh. It should not surprise me that Eric is behind this one. And good on him, too. Okay. Therefore, multiple item maintains the constitutional authority, legislate, vested rights, multiple use, etc., etc., etc. The county and use plans serve as the establishment best management practices within each county and contemplated with Congress, requiring federally to cooperate with local governments to. Okay, yeah, I can see why he's. I don't know if I'm going to mention exactly why, but yeah, Eric Parker is more famous. Well, he's more famous for a certain incident that happened. Oh gosh, I think over 10 years ago now. That had a lot to do with this very kind of issue. So it's no surprise. Okay, it has never ceded such years in wholesale, and therefore it is constitutionally sound for the legislature to enact laws governing land use, yada yada yada. Idahoans depend on access to. Yes, okay. Whereas from the earliest organic acts governing forest okay, I'm just going to agree to that. That's a big block of text, and I'm starting to get a headache here. Whereas the management of land and resources has always been inseparable. Okay. Oh, well, okay, this is really long, and I'm betting that this could be halved easily. I don't disagree. Okay, so I'm just going to go down to the resolved clauses here. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls upon the Idaho Legislature to exercise its retained jurisdiction and enact statutory law to affirm, codify, require, prioritize, safeguard, and therefore be it further resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee affirms its statutory affirmative as the proper and constitutional vehicle for addressing these challenges, recognizing that litigation has failed to restore state control, even though and as through legislation that I can secure its jurisdiction, protect its people, and okay. Agree, and I wish him good, and I wish him all the best with this. Okay. Resolution 2026-15. 2026-15, and let's see, where are we at? 103:20 in the video. All right. Submitted text regarding taxpayer support for teachers unions, Brian Allman. Ooh, he got this. Oh, I didn't know he got it through Region 5. Okay, cool. Well, he is on that committee. Whereas the NEA, the largest teachers union, has been described as the Wall Street Journal and as the ideological and vanguard of progressive politics and a powerful wing of the Democrat Party. Not wrong. The IEA is the state affiliate of the NEA. Whereas 93% of the 2024 general election spending by Political Action Committee is connected to the IEA. Oh, I didn't know that. That's concerning. Whereas the IEA endorsed Proposition 1 in 2024. Oh, that's right. Okay. Whereas the IEA is a member and annual contributor to the Idaho Progressive Investor Network, a dark money organization to yada, yada, yada. The IEA's Summer Institute Professional Development Conference for Teachers. Not wrong. Okay, I'm just going to agree to that because I'm actually starting to get a really bad headache here. The IEA has recently described conservative Republicans in serving in the United Legislature as bad, destructive, radical, hardline, out of control, power hungry, and an infestation. Huh. And whereas the IEA has launched a May Matters campaign to mobilize IEA members to turn out voters in the May 2026 primary and return a pro-public education majority to the Idaho legislature by getting the Democratic and independent teachers to re-register as Republicans in strategic districts. Oh, they're blatantly doing the crossover thing. Okay. Um, Whereas school districts across Idaho provide the IEA and its local affiliates with direct and indirect taxpayer support by using public payroll systems and personnel to deduct union dues. Okay, yeah, I know about the whole dues situation. Taxpayers should not be forced to subsidize private. Yep, this 1,000 times this. Okay, well, whereas Idaho voters broadly support changing laws to prevent taxpayer funds and government resources from being used to support teachers' unions. Not right. Yeah, that's the thing I hear about all the time from voters too. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee supports the passage of legislation to prohibit taxpayer support for teachers' unions in all forms, direct or indirect, and be it further resolved that the Republican State Central Committee directs the state chairman to request the Idaho GOP legislative liaisons to work with fellow legislators to ensure the passage of, well, I can't speak for her, but the state chairman, one Dorothy Moon, she is a former educator, so she's probably very well aware of a lot of the details there. So she's probably for a lot of this, and she would probably be very amenable to getting something like this done. Of course, I would talk with her directly first. Nobody speaks for her but her, but okay, that's the end of that one. So agree. Let's get that one done. The IEA is a scourge that feeds upon that unjustly on the resources of the Idahoan taxpayer. Okay, so my full response to this is agree. Let's get that one done. The IEA is a scourge that unjustly feeds upon the resources of the Idahoan taxpayer. All right, easy enough. Okay, so 2026 16. Let's see, where are we at? 107.58. 07.58. And what is this? Resolution for equitable local service funding within tribal reservation boundaries. Okay. Oh, it's Harry Heath on this one with Lewis County. Okay. Whereas Idaho's counties and cities rely heavily on property taxes to fund essential public services, including law enforcement, fire protection, emergency response roads, and sanitation. Okay. Whereas essential areas of land within Idaho's county boundaries are designated as tribal reservation lands and are exempt from local property taxation. Okay. Whereas residents and businesses located within or benefiting from these reservation lands utilize county municipal services funded primarily by local. Okay, I didn't know it was quite like that out there, but okay. This exemption creates structural inequity whereby private landowners and taxpayers bear a disproportionate share of the financial burden for services extended to all residents within the county. Not wrong. Whereas Idaho counties are increasingly strained in their ability to provide adequate services due to this imbalance, which undermines fiscal sustainability in local governments. Not wrong. Whereas fairness and fiscal responsibility require that all residents and landowners, regardless of jurisdictional and sovereign status, contribute equitably to the cost of essential local services. And Whereas respect for tribal sovereignty and government-to-government collaboration are foundational principles in Idaho's approach to tribal relations. Okay. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee strongly supports legislation and policy initiatives that empower counties to seek equitable contributions from tribal government or landholders within reservation boundaries through cooperative agreements or other legally supported mechanisms, and be it further resolved that such contributions be commensurate with the value of services received and remitted directly to the counties and municipalities in which reservation lands are located to support law enforcement, fire protection, EMS, roads, and sanitation services. And be it further resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee urges Idaho's elected officials to prioritize the fiscal health of counties and advocate for parity in the distribution of tax burdens while maintaining respect for tribal sovereignty and promoting collaborative funding models. And be it further resolved that existing frameworks such as the Good Neighbor Authority, the Tribal State Compacts, and the State Tribal Relations Act be utilized and expanded to support sustainable government, and all copies of this yada yada yada. Okay, I'm gonna passive agree because I don't know much about either sides of this. Agree, and I'm just gonna move on. Okay. Resolution 2026-17, 2026-17. Where are we in the video? 11122. All right, what is this? Resolution urging a constitutional amendment to replace all state taxes with a sales tax to reduce government spending in alignment with the Idaho State Constitution. This is the tax. Okay, yeah, this is the tax thing that from Ben Chaffetz. Okay, submitted by, yeah, I was there. The Idaho State Constitution, Article 7, Sections 2 and 5 mandates revenue through property taxation and permits other taxes such as income taxes, but allows flexibility for alternative revenue systems like a sales tax. And whereas Article 7, Section 11 and Article 8, Section 1 require fiscal responsibility through balanced budgets and limited debt. And whereas a simplified debt system based solely on sales tax would reduce burdens on Idahoans, promote economic growth, and align with Republican principles of limited government. And transitioning to a sales tax only system requires a constitutional amendment to revise the legislature's taxing authority, subject to voter approval under Article 20. And whereas a gradual transition supported by economic analysis and public interest will ensure fiscal stability and broad support. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee urges the Idaho State Legislature to propose a constitutional amendment to do all that stuff, develop a 3 to 5 year transition plan, commission an independent impact study to determine, etc., conduct comprehensive audit, adjust the sales tax, provide temporary state funding, revenue sharing, engage Idahoans, town hall referendum, blah, blah, blah. The copies of this resolution. Agree, and I hope this agreed, and I hope this goes somewhere. That's all I have to say about that. Taxation isn't theft, it's extortion. Okay, so 2026-18. 2026-18. Resolution to cut 1.1 billion. That's a big number in non-constitutional spending from the Idaho state budget. Okay, let's see what they're getting at. Oh, this is a Ben Chaffetz thing again. Okay, all the formatting is weird. Okay, whereas J. Madison declared, I cannot undertake to lay my finger on the article of the Constitution which granted the right to Congress expending on objects of benevolence the money of their constituents, and whereas the state of Idaho currently spends $1.1 billion on non-core, non-constitutional programs that violate this principle, and whereas an initial layer of bloat can be cut by simple majority vote in 2027 with zero impact on essential services as detailed below. Oh. Oh, you're gonna get some mad people out of the Idaho public television thing. but you're not wrong. Be it resolved that the Republican Party calls on the legislature to adopt a zero-based sunset of all boards and yada yada yada, eliminate the yada yada, replace the. Okay, so I didn't catch it. I think it was somewhere around 113 or so. Hard agree. Hard agree. Let's do it. I'm not saying that just because he's my district chair, but because I actually believe in this. Like, if we could do this, then we should. Okay, 2026-19. All right, where are we at? 1:15:41. 15:41. All right, what is this? 2026-19 resolution to return the United States of America to a constitutional money system of commodity-backed money. Okay, by Phil Hart. Oh, yeah, I hope you guys are doing okay up there in Shoshone, as I was talking about before. To be presented by Phil Hart or Nina Bisley. Oh, hey, Nina Bisley, one of the cool Kootenai County people. All right, cool. Throughout the recorded history, mankind has used a variety of monetary systems, the most common having been the use of paper currency and the use of precious metals. Not wrong. The history of paper currency is a history of inflation, rising prices, higher economic risk, economic uncertainty, and economic decline. Interesting way to put it. You're not wrong. Whereas the history of a precious metals-based monetary system is one of stable prices, economic certainty, and economic prosperity. Well, that's what a lot of my libertarian friends say, and they're not wrong either. Whereas periods under the gold standard, such as yada yada, often carry a long-term price stability, and I'm just going to agree to all of that because I'm getting a headache. Whereas agree. The money supply has been flooded by an unknown amount as new money is flooded into various. You're not wrong there. Whereas this out of control increase in the money supply has caused asset values to skyrocket, as such the young people can afford. Also very true. Whereas the rate of marriage and birth rate for young guys. Oh, they're going there with this. Okay, cool. Somebody needed to say it. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls on Congress to return to the money system backed and that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee sends this resolution to these people. Okay, agreed. Moving on, 2026-20, and we are at 1:17:55 in the video. And resolution regarding when representative labels in government by Paul I've learned not to trust things from Paul Ross. In fact, I literally made a couple of rule changes because of him specifically. Cassia County out there. Our nation reflects on the passing of Charlie Kirk. Okay, you're invoking this for some reason. I hope you're going in a good direction. And whose life and work touched many. Okay, you're not wrong. Rightly stated that we need to don't share the same worldview and see one better, trying to find a common bond. You should own your discussions every day. Civil dialogue. Okay. Civil dialogue also means that a lot of the people who are factionally closer to you, Paul, should absolutely change their ways. It's not like we don't hear about what you guys call us in private settings. We hear about that stuff. We're all far-right neo-Nazi teabaggers, according to the former establishment. At the passing of Charlie Kirk, some celebrated his assassination. The celebration of death harms the dignity of our nation, diminishes and values person. You're not wrong there. Should probably practice what you preach, though. Labels and stereotypes, when used to divide or humanize fuel cycles of the hostility. Not wrong. Whereas misuse of authority, whether through government institutions or social influence, to silence and punish individuals based on beliefs, undermines the principle of enduring principles of liberty process. I like how this isn't wrong, but it goes completely against what your buddy over there in East Idaho, one Trent Clark, was saying in the infamous Cookies and Balloons interview. It's good that you're calling him out. Our homes, schools, churches, and public institutions share the responsibility to cultivate an environment of mutual respect when disagreements are okay. Keep this in mind when some of you literally tried to call my bishop to call me out for a factional disagreement. Yes, that literally happened. And a lot of you people in East Idaho should know better for a handful of different reasons. Together we can nourish those learning of the faith. Whereas politically weaponized labels, including but not limited to right-wing extreme, left-wing, some of those very names that your faction, Paul, has been calling conservatives, has resulted in intimidation, coercion, cancellation, censorship. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Censure Committee does hereby affirm the following commitments to honor the dignity of life and the weaponization of level of authority, promote civil dialogue. This resolution affirms our responsibility to reject the political weaponization of the firm. Hard agree, and I am so warmed by this open rejection of the lies, labeling, and vitriol from the former faction towards conservatives. Glad to have you on board, Paul. Farm establishment is being kind of hypocritical with this one, but you know what? I'm gonna let that go. If they really do mean to decrease the temperature, as it were, then we should let them. I am, however, always going to remember things done and said to me, to my friends and I. So, next one's 2026-21. See, and where are we in the video? 123.16. Resolution to prohibit pornography in the state of Idaho. Oh, okay, so it's one of those good Kootenai County people. All right. Pornography has been shown in... okay, you're not wrong. Widespread availability of pornographic material. Not wrong. Whereas the internet has magnified the problem. Okay. Not wrong. The book, The Naked Communists, Exposing Communists and Truth, and it states that number 25 of the four current communist goals: break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books. Oh, I didn't know that, but it makes sense with communists. The state, the responsibility of civil government to protect the welfare, safety, and moral integrity of its citizens, particularly in its youth. Yeah. The United States Supreme Court has affirmed that states have the right to regulate and restrict obscene materials that lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value under the Miller test. Oh, bringing that out. Okay. Whereas pornography undermines public health, and yeah, okay, agreed. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee encourages the Idaho legislature to declare pornography a public health hazard and a moral blight, contributing to the erosion of community standards and individual dignity. Well, you're not wrong. Be it further resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee encourages the Idaho State Legislature to rewrite that statute to say that the production, distribution, and sale, how the transmission of pornographic material as defined in state law, consistent with presence, shall be banned within the state of Idaho. I don't know if they're going to succeed there, but I'm not exactly going to get in your way trying. Be it further resolved that that enforcement mechanisms should include civil penalties, requirements for ISPs, public education. Okay. Be it further resolved that the Republican State Central Committee encourages the Idaho legislatures to do that. Okay, you know what? Passive agree. I'm going to move on. Okay, 2026, 22. 2026, 22. Where are we in the video? 126.03. All right, what do we got? Keep Idaho's water. Some numbers. Ben Furman. Well, let's hear him out. Water is the foundation of Idaho's farms, yet it continues to decline. Force of curtailments that now threaten farmers. Yeah, I did hear about that. Whereas Idaho faces longer, hotter summers and warmer winters that reduce the snowpack and cause the runoff to. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember hearing about that. The state irrigates more acres than ever before, but shrinking and inconsistent snowpack has created shortages that harm farms, cities, fish, and industry, whereas Idaho loses that. For recharge has proven to be an effective tool, but without additional late season water from storage, recharge cannot be sustained. Well, I didn't know that. Whereas approximately 5,000 Idahoans have already signed a petition to keep urges the state and federal government to act now. Okay. Whereas Idaho legislature, Idaho must commit to alarm. Okay. Whereas practical options are already on the table, and he lists a whole bunch of things. For all I know, he's probably right. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee urges the Idaho to do all of this stuff. Okay, I'm just going to passive agree on that since I'm not strong on that subject, so I'm just going to say, agree. And I have a lot of farmers and ranchers, in my extended family, and they probably would agree with this. So I'm just going to move on. I'm getting a headache anyway. 2026, 23, and where are we in the video? 127.57. 7:57. And what is this one? Resolution calling for a posthumous pardon for Randy. This one. Okay. And justice for unjustly wiretapped. Yeah, that happened. Gravely overstepped the son by trespassing, and yeah, that's right. They killed the one. They killed the kid. And they shot Randy Weaver. Yeah. Oh, and here's the thing. Here's the thing about this whereas clause right here. They knew they killed her, but were days later taunting the family with calling out her name and saying, "Oh yeah, we had breakfast and all that." One thing that a really good YouTube video that everyone should watch about this is the one that Count Dankula did. I'm not going to link it in the comments or anything because I'm probably going to pass out right after I stop recording. But go look up Count Dankula's video on Ruby Ridge because I think this resolution is underselling what happened. Some very, very evil people were involved in this, and they weren't the Weavers. Okay, continuing. Horiuchi has demonstrated the pattern of neglect and further. Yeah, that's right. He was involved in. Okay, yeah. Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris were acquitted of nearly everything, except Weaver was convicted of failure to appear. And they screwed him over on the failure to appear. I didn't know a lot of the actual details that the Count Dankula video has. But yeah, they screwed him over. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls upon Boundary County Prosecutor to bring charges of murder against Lon Horiuchi as recommended by the special assigned to the case. Yeah, it's a start. Be it finally resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls upon President Donald Trump to issue a poll for convention and a resolution. I wholeheartedly endorse this resolution. This needs to happen. Okay. Just to make sure that it is completely clear for the record, as soon as I can get caps lock to turn off, 2020 resolution 2026-23-127-57 into the video. I wholeheartedly endorse this resolution. This needs to happen. Full stop. Okay, let's see. Resolution 2026-24. And where are we in the video? 130, 112? All right. 2026-20. Every child a swimmer. Okay, well, let's see what this is. Melanie Vanderveer. Okay, yeah, I know these names because they're spoken of quite highly by a lot of my friends up there in North Idaho, and this is a Kootenai County thing, so it might be fine. Whereas drowning is the leading cause of injury. Oh, going straight for the heartstrings there. In fact, I'm gonna tell a little story. Back when, in the mid-90s, when the Jensen family, we were living in the what we called the Candlewood House. It was actually kind of out by the Boise Temple in a rental for, like 4 years out of the 90s. One day, I was told that a certain extended cousin that I had actually never heard the name of before, he was just this little kid, and we lost him to drowning in a canal. And I remember that this was like up to that point, this was the longest road trip that I'd ever remembered. But this was only like a road trip over to like Burley, where a lot of my dad and my grandma's family were. And I remember being in in that funeral for a kid that I actually never knew of, this extended cousin that I'd never known of, and never known in life. And later, because a lot of Mormon gatherings are very much food driven, and so after the funeral had concluded, there was we were just having a family lunch, and a lot of this kid's personal toys and effects were made available for the other kids in the family to play around with, and they were just including, I remember, a wagon that was the kids were just running around with, having such a good time. It was such a weird thing, but it was actually kind of wholesome, where a lot of these younger kids were just playing with, kind of honoring him by playing with his toys and his wagons and things. But gosh, that was such a sad story. So yes, you've successfully hit the heartstrings pretty hard. Anyway, continue. Drowning is it's a pretty bad thing when it happens to kids. And whereas Every Child a Swimmer is a water safety initiative that Idaho is not number one in overall drowning, but with the second highest rate of children drowning in irrigation canals. And then, oh yeah, oof. You got me right. You got me right in the gut there. It's high rate. The key. Okay, I'm just gonna agree to all the supporting stuff. Therefore, be it resolved that the key aspects of the initiative are to focus on education, parental empowerment, drowning is the leading cause of accident and death. Be it further resolved that is led to adopt to protect children. Okay, agree. I'm gonna move on before I lose it on camera. See, what are we at now? Resolution 2026. 25, and where are we at in the video? 1, 35, 42. And this resolution is title resolution ensuring undivided loyalty, requiring extended U.S. citizenship, Idaho residency, oaths of allegiance, and background checks for elected or appointed offices in Idaho, submitted by Patrick Wolf. Oh, wait a minute, wasn't somebody in Ada was also trying this? Okay, well, anyway, the U.S. Constitution in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 establishes that only a natural-born citizen is eligible for a president to ensure yada yada. Concerns of resignation regarding elected office officials whose statements or actions suggest prioritization of foreign entities or interests over American values, such as Congresswoman Delia Ramirez's public declaration during an overseas trip that her Guatemalan pride comes before her American identity. Ooh. And I know that there was a Somali thing too. Sparking widespread examples in other states illustrate potential cultural shifts when officials hold divided loyalties, including Hamtramck, Michigan's all-Muslim city, Islam called a prayer, Dearborn Heights, adding Arabic to police patches, Texas having to pass to stop Sharia law enclaves. And these instances underscore the importance ensuring that every public official in Idaho, especially in our largest cities, prioritize American interest, values, and constitutional principles above all else. And whereas the Republican Party is committed to leadership that puts America first, strong nations and influencing government, keeping Gem State freest, most loyal corner of the Republic. Therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Republican State Central Committee calls upon the legislature to amend that part of Idaho Code and related statutes to require every candidate for the following offices must meet these 3 loyalty safeguards. 1, 15 continuous years of U.S. citizenship immediately before filing. Okay. Oath of undivided allegiance under penalty of perjury. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, and I swear affirmed fielded with the Secretary of the UK. False oath equals immediate removal and prosecution. Maybe you could have typed that part out a little better there because that's not complete English there, but all right. Clean background check with ISP and no foreign active form. That could compromise loyalty. So, okay, and these still apply. Okay. So this is good, and I mostly agree. However, and someone actually tried making an issue out of this during the dark time when the Victor Miller cult was coming to power in Ada County. They called themselves Make Ada Great Again, where a friend of mine, Ryan Davidson, he was running for county commissioner, and it had come up that, yes, he was born in Canada to a Canadian father and an American mother. By the way, her name's Karen, and she is a very sweet person. But I've only met her like twice, but she's good people. They tried making an issue out of out of Ryan being Canadian, on top of all the other lies that the Victor Miller cult was saying at the time. And he definitely would fit in the what was it? The 15-year thing I think they put in here. And he, by and definition, according to the laws of the United States of America, he was already a citizen. But I see sometimes people with this kind of thing. This stuff here is fine, but this kind of thing, where they go too far with it and start trying to eliminate him. Where somebody like him, where he was born in a very friendly and culturally similar place, and he still is a United States citizen. Not through the usual ways in which most of us are, but he is still by law a United States citizen, and he had been, he was still a qualified elector and everything. They go too far in saying like everyone who was not born here should not hold any office at all, and that the details of that go a little bit too far. So I really hope that that kind of thing is kept in mind when this kind of resolution is considered. Agreed, but this can go wrong if not taken care of properly. Okay, so my full response to that is agreed, but this can go wrong if not taken care of properly. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, that's the end. Hallelujah. Okay, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to stop recording here. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to upload and do all the clicky-clacky things. And looks like this is a mostly good slate of resolutions. There's some that I definitely disagree with, and I have reason to disagree because I'm a Republican. But this video is finally done. Hallelujah. Y'all have a good night. Blessings.